Imagine boarding a flight, excited for your journey, unaware that you're about to step into one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in aviation history. Northwest Flight 2501 took off like any other routine flight. Yet within hours, it vanished, without a trace. No distress signals, no clear answers, just an eerie silence that left investigators and loved ones in shock. How does a massive aircraft simply disappear? Even today, more than 7 decades later, the questions remain unanswered. But what if the truth is far stranger than we ever imagined? This isn't just a story of a missing plane. It's a tale of mystery, strange coincidences, and chilling possibilities that make you wonder if something bigger was at play. Some say it was an accident. Others whisper about something far more sinister. Was it a cover-up, a paranormal event, or something we may never understand? On June 23, 1950, Northwest Flight 2501, a Douglas DC-4 aircraft, was on its way from New York to Seattle, carrying 55 passengers and 3 crew members. The weather was rough that night, strong winds, thunderstorms, and heavy turbulence. Despite the conditions, flights often dealt with bad weather, and the crew remained confident in their journey. Then at exactly 11:13 p.m., Captain Robert Lynn made a chilling request. He radioed air traffic control, asking for permission to descend from 3,500 feet to 2,500 feet due to severe turbulence over Lake Michigan. Before they could respond, silence. The plane was gone. Search teams were sent out immediately, but what they found only deepened the mystery. Small pieces of debris and personal belongings washed ashore, but the plane itself was nowhere to be found. No large wreckage, no bodies, nothing that could explain what had really happened that night. How could a massive aircraft disappear so completely, leaving behind only fragments of its existence? The more investigators searched, the more baffling the case became. Some believed the plane crashed into the lake due to bad weather. But if that were true, why was there no major wreckage? Others suggested more chilling theories. Was the plane hijacked, blown up midair, or even taken by something beyond our understanding? To this day, the fate of Northwest Flight 2501 remains unknown. But as we uncover more details, one question lingers. Did something unnatural happen that night? And if so, could it happen again? In the eerie silence that followed the disappearance of Northwest Flight 2501, investigators were left grasping at shadows. How does a fully operational plane carrying 58 people simply vanish into the night? The last known transmission from Captain Robert Lynn hinted at worsening conditions. But beyond that, the flight seemed to dissolve into thin air. To understand what might have happened, we must go back to where it all began, the moment Flight 2501 prepared for takeoff. It was a routine evening at New York's LaGuardia Airport on June 23, 1950. Passengers boarded the sleek Douglas DC-4 aircraft, completely unaware that they were stepping into history's most baffling aviation mystery. The flight was scheduled to stop in Minneapolis before continuing to Seattle, a journey expected to take several hours. The crew, led by Captain Robert Lynn and First Officer Vern L. Wolfe, had years of experience. They had flown this aircraft countless times before. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. As the plane taxied onto the runway, the engines roared to life, cutting through the evening air. For the passengers, this was just another trip. Families, business travelers, and vacationers settling into their seats, expecting nothing more than a smooth journey west. But in the background, unseen by those on board, the weather reports painted a far more ominous picture. A massive storm was brewing over the Midwest, and Flight 2501 was heading straight into it. Despite the conditions, flights didn't just cancel for bad weather in those days. Pilots were trained to navigate turbulence, and the DC-4 was a sturdy aircraft built to withstand rough skies. At 7:31 p.m., the plane lifted off, climbing into the darkening sky. Everything appeared normal for a while. Hours later, as Flight 2501 approached Lake Michigan, turbulence intensified. Strong winds battered the aircraft. Lightning flashed across the sky, and rain pounded against the fuselage. Passengers likely felt the unsettling dips and jolts as the plane struggled through the storm. It was around this time that Captain Lin made his final transmission, requesting to descend to 2,500 feet, possibly to escape the worst of the storm. But before air traffic control could respond, the plane was gone. In a matter of moments, Northwest Flight 2501 had disappeared without a trace. No distress call, no indication of a crash, just an eerie void where a plane should have been. What happened in those last moments before the silence? Did the aircraft succumb to the storm, or was there something far more mysterious at play? The search for answers was about to begin, but what investigators would find only deepened the mystery. The silence that followed Captain Lin's final transmission was more than just unsettling. It was the beginning of one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries. Air traffic controllers waited for a response, expecting Flight 2501 to acknowledge their instructions. But no further messages came. Minutes passed, then hours. The plane, its crew, and its 55 passengers had vanished into the darkness without another word. Panic set in when the aircraft failed to arrive at its scheduled stop in Minneapolis. Airline officials scrambled to make contact, but no radio signals were detected. The worst fears of the passengers' families were slowly becoming a reality. Something had gone terribly wrong. As dawn broke on June 24th, search teams were mobilized to track down the missing plane. Yet as they scoured the skies and waters, they were met with an unsettling truth. There was no sign of Flight 2501. Lake Michigan, where the plane was last known to be flying, became the focus of an intense search operation. The U.S. Coast Guard, Navy, and local authorities launched boats, planes, and helicopters in an effort to find the missing aircraft. Given the massive size of the DC-4, investigators expected to locate significant wreckage. But as the hours dragged on, only small, scattered fragments began to appear. Near the eastern shores of the lake, pieces of seat cushions, blankets, and personal belongings washed up. A fisherman reported seeing a strange red light fall from the sky the previous night, followed by an eerie explosion over the water. But despite these clues, the aircraft itself remained missing. There were no large sections of debris, no floating bodies, no sign of an intact fuselage. It was as if Flight 2501 had simply dissolved into the night. The unsettling part was that the lake had given up just enough evidence to confirm that the plane had crashed, but not enough to explain why or how. Normally, when an aircraft goes down, its wreckage can be found, analyzed, and pieced back together. But this time, the only thing investigators had were questions. Where was the rest of the plane? Why had no one on board managed to send out a distress call? And if the storm had taken the plane down, why was there no large debris field? As the days passed, more bizarre details emerged, leading some to question whether something far stranger had occurred that night. Had the plane suffered an unexpected mechanical failure? Or was it brought down by an external force, something no one had anticipated? The deeper the investigation went, the more disturbing the mystery became. The search for Northwest Flight 2501 quickly turned into one of the most extensive recovery efforts of its time. As news of the missing plane spread, the U.S. Coast Guard, Navy, and local authorities intensified their search. Dozens of boats combed the surface of Lake Michigan, while aircraft flew overhead, scanning for any sign of the wreckage. It was a race against time, but with each passing hour, hope of finding survivors faded. By June 25th, just 2 days after the disappearance, the first chilling discoveries were made. On the shores near South Haven, Michigan, small fragments of debris began to wash up. Seat cushions, clothing, and personal belongings from passengers floated onto the beaches. But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come: human remains. Rescuers found body parts scattered in the water, confirming the worst fears. The plane had indeed crashed, and there were no survivors. However, what baffled investigators was the condition of the remains. They were badly fragmented, almost as if they had been torn apart mid-air. This led to further speculation. Had the aircraft exploded before impact? If so, what had caused it? Despite these findings, there was still no sign of the main wreckage. Unlike other plane crashes, where large sections of the fuselage or wings typically remain intact, Flight 2501 seemed to have disintegrated. The lake had swallowed it whole, leaving only traces behind. Divers were sent to explore the lakebed, but visibility was poor. and the lake's depths made it nearly impossible to conduct a thorough search. Sonar technology was still in its early stages, and without precise coordinates, locating the aircraft was like finding a needle in a haystack. Days turned into weeks, and still, no significant wreckage was recovered. Families of the passengers were left in a painful limbo. They had no closure, no bodies to bury, no final words from their loved ones. The airline could only offer condolences and the vague explanation that the plane had gone down in the lake. But for many, this wasn't enough. They wanted to know why. What had really happened in those final moments before the crash? As the search dragged on, new theories began to emerge, some logical, others bordering on the unexplainable. Some believed the storm had simply overpowered the aircraft, forcing it into an uncontrolled descent. Others suggested a sudden mechanical failure, but there were also those who believed something far stranger had occurred, something that no one was willing to say out loud just yet. The mystery of Flight 2501 was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. As the days turned into weeks, the mystery of Northwest Flight 2501 only deepened. The official search eventually slowed, but unanswered questions continued to haunt investigators and the families of the passengers. If the plane had crashed due to bad weather, where was the wreckage? Why had no large parts of the fuselage been found? And why were the human remains so fragmented, as if something had torn the plane apart before impact? The more people looked into the case, the stranger it became. A fisherman near South Haven reported seeing a mysterious red light falling from the sky the night of the crash. He described it as glowing and moving unnaturally before disappearing into the lake. Was it simply a reflection from the storm, or something more ominous? Others in the area claimed they heard a loud explosion, yet there was no official confirmation of an in-air explosion from authorities. Could Flight 2501 have been struck by lightning? Or was there another force at play? Another strange detail came from the recovery efforts. When the bodies of some victims washed ashore, they were discovered in a way that baffled experts, torn apart as if subjected to extreme force. While a high-speed water impact could cause injuries, some investigators at the time found the severity of the damage unusual. This fueled theories that the plane may have exploded before hitting the water. But if that were the case, what caused it? A mechanical failure? A bomb? Something else? Then there were the eerie reports that surfaced in the years following the crash. Some local residents began to tell stories of strange occurrences near Lake Michigan, sightings of ghostly figures near the shore, unexplained lights hovering over the water, and even mysterious radio signals that seemed to come from nowhere. Could these be coincidences, or was Flight 2501 connected to something far more mysterious? The fact that the main wreckage was never found only added to the speculation. It was as if the lake itself had swallowed the plane, erasing nearly all traces of it. Theories ranging from military involvement to supernatural forces began to circulate. Some even suggested the possibility of a government cover-up. Was there something on board that authorities didn't want the public to know about? With every piece of debris that washed ashore, investigators thought they were closer to solving the puzzle. But instead, the clues only led to more confusion. Flight 2501 had vanished, but the mystery surrounding it had only grown stronger. And as time went on, it became clear that some secrets might never be uncovered. With so many questions left unanswered, investigators and aviation experts began forming their own theories about what might have happened to Northwest Flight 2501. While the official explanation pointed toward bad weather and possible pilot error, there were details that didn't quite add up. Could a storm alone have caused a plane to vanish so completely? And if it did, why wasn't there more wreckage to prove it? One of the most widely accepted theories is that the turbulent weather caused the aircraft to lose control, sending it into an uncontrollable descent into Lake Michigan. At the time of Captain Lynn's last transmission, he had requested permission to descend to 2,500 feet due to strong turbulence. If the plane was already struggling against powerful winds, it's possible that the storm worsened, forcing the aircraft into an unrecoverable dive. But even if this were true, why was there no large debris field? In most plane crashes over water, wreckage is usually found floating or scattered across a wide area. Large sections of the fuselage, wings or tail typically remain intact. In the case of Flight 2501, however, only small broken fragments and human remains were ever recovered. Some experts suggested that the plane might have hit the water at such a high speed that it shattered upon impact. But again, that alone couldn't explain why nothing significant from the aircraft itself had ever been found. Then there's the possibility of mechanical failure. The Douglas DC-4 was considered a reliable aircraft, but like any machine, it wasn't immune to issues. Some believe that a sudden structural failure, perhaps caused by the severe turbulence, could have torn the plane apart in midair. If the fuselage broke apart before hitting the water, that could explain the scattered remains. However, there was no distress call, no indication from the pilots that anything was wrong beyond the rough weather. If a mechanical failure did occur, why didn't the crew have time to report it? Another theory, though far more controversial, is that the plane may have been the victim of an external attack. In the years following World War II, tensions were rising between world powers. Some believe that a military aircraft or even an experimental weapon could have mistakenly or intentionally taken down Flight 2501. However, no records or evidence have ever surfaced to support this theory. And then there's the most unsettling possibility of all, the unknown. Some witnesses claim to have seen strange lights in the sky that night. The idea of UFO involvement has been brought up in similar cases of aircraft disappearing under mysterious circumstances. Could Flight 2501 have encountered something beyond our understanding? While this theory is dismissed by most aviation experts, it remains one of the many unexplained aspects of this case. Regardless of the cause, one thing remains certain. Something happened that night that defies conventional explanation. The storm may have played a role, but it alone cannot explain why a massive airplane simply vanished without a trace. And as the years passed, the mystery only deepened, with new, even stranger theories emerging. As if the official theories weren't puzzling enough, Flight 2501's disappearance also attracted attention from those who believe something beyond our understanding may have played a role. Over the years, the case has been linked to reports of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, unexplained aerial phenomena, and even supernatural forces. Could it be that something more than just bad weather or mechanical failure brought the plane down? At first glance, the idea of UFO involvement may seem far-fetched, but there are eerie coincidences that cannot be ignored. Witnesses near Lake Michigan reported seeing strange lights in the sky on the night of the crash. Some described them as glowing orbs hovering over the lake, while others claimed to have seen a red light moving erratically before vanishing. One fisherman even reported a bright flash in the sky followed by what he believed to be an explosion. Could Flight 2501 have encountered something unknown in the skies? While skeptics argue that these lights were likely just reflections from the storm, there are historical records that suggest otherwise. The 1950s were a time of heightened UFO sightings, with many reports coming from pilots and military personnel. Just weeks before the disappearance of Flight 2501, a series of UFO sightings had been reported across the Midwest. In fact, the U.S. government had already launched Project Blue Book, a secret investigation into unidentified flying objects. Some researchers have pointed out that the timing of Flight 2501's disappearance aligns with a period of increased UFO activity over the Great Lakes region. Could the plane have been intercepted by an unknown craft? Some theorists suggest that a close encounter with a UFO could have disrupted the aircraft's instruments or caused an electrical failure, leading to a sudden loss of control. Others go even further, speculating that the plane may have been taken in a way similar to other infamous disappearances, such as the cases in the Bermuda Triangle. Another theory ties Flight 2501 to a mysterious region known as the Lake Michigan Triangle, a section of the lake infamous for unexplained disappearances of ships, planes, and even entire crews. Some believe that the area has unusual magnetic properties that can interfere with navigation systems, causing aircraft and boats to become disoriented. Could Flight 2501 have fallen victim to a force that has claimed other vessels in the past? While mainstream investigators dismiss these ideas, they cannot deny one fact. Flight 2501's disappearance remains completely unexplained. No definitive cause has ever been identified, and no major wreckage has ever been recovered. The lake has kept its secrets for more than 7 decades, fueling speculation that something beyond ordinary circumstances was involved. If this were just another plane crash, wouldn't there be solid evidence to explain it? And if the lake were the only reason for the aircraft's vanishing, why have so many others reported strange phenomena in the same region? The mystery of Flight 2501 remains open-ended, and for those who believe in the unknown, it stands as one of the most chilling cases of an aircraft vanishing without a trace. The disappearance of Northwest Flight 2501 isn't the only mystery surrounding Lake Michigan. In fact, this case is just one of many eerie incidents tied to a region known as the Lake Michigan Triangle, an area infamous for unexplained vanishings, strange phenomena, and bizarre sightings. Could Flight 2501 have fallen victim to the same forces that have swallowed up countless others? The Lake Michigan Triangle stretches between Manitowoc, Wisconsin, Ludington, Michigan, and Benton Harbor, Michigan. For decades, this stretch of water has been linked to shipwrecks, plane crashes, and disappearances that defy explanation. Much like the Bermuda Triangle, reports from this area often include strange lights, unusual weather patterns, and unexplained compass malfunctions. Some researchers believe that this region has unique electromagnetic properties that can interfere with navigation systems, leading pilots and sailors to lose their way. One of the most famous disappearances in this area occurred in 1891, when Thomas Hume, a schooner carrying lumber, vanished without a trace. Despite extensive searches, no wreckage was ever found. Similarly, in 1921, the Rouse's Simmons, another large ship, mysteriously disappeared. When its wreck was finally discovered years later, there were no signs of its crew, almost as if they had vanished into thin air. But it's not just ships that have been lost in the Lake Michigan Triangle. In 1953, 3 years after Flight 2501's disappearance, an F-89 Scorpion jet mysteriously vanished while chasing an unidentified flying object over the lake. The U.S. Air Force scrambled the jet to investigate an unknown radar contact, but shortly after, the aircraft disappeared from radar screens. No wreckage was found, and no distress signal was ever sent. The case, known as the Kinross incident, remains unsolved to this day. Could these cases be connected? Some researchers believe that whatever force is responsible for the disappearances of ships and planes in this region may have also been involved in the fate of Flight 2501. The strange lights seen the night of the crash, the sudden and complete vanishing of the wreckage, and the eerie similarities to other cases all suggest that something unnatural may have played a role. There's also the possibility that underground anomalies beneath Lake Michigan contribute to these disappearances. Some geologists have suggested that unusual magnetic activity in the region could disrupt electronic instruments, leading to fatal navigational errors. Others have pointed to reports of sudden fog banks and extreme weather shifts, which could disorient pilots and captains alike. However, the biggest question remains: why is there never enough wreckage to explain these vanishings? Flight 2501 was a massive aircraft, yet the lake only gave up small pieces of debris. The same pattern exists for other disappearances. Large vessels and aircraft simply seem to dissolve into nothingness. Whether one believes in supernatural forces, hidden government experiments, or just a string of unfortunate coincidences, one thing is certain: the Lake Michigan Triangle is a place of secrets. And among those secrets, the fate of Northwest Flight 2501 remains one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time. Despite decades of technological advancements and renewed efforts to uncover the truth, the fate of Northwest Flight 2501 remains a mystery. Over the years, various organizations and researchers have attempted to locate the main wreckage, hoping that modern tools might succeed where past searches failed. Yet even with sonar scans and deep water exploration, the aircraft has never been found. Why has Flight 2501 remained hidden for so long? In recent years, one of the most persistent groups investigating the case has been the Michigan Shipwreck Research Association, MSRA. Led by Valerie Van Heest and her team, the MSRA has spent years scanning the depths of Lake Michigan, using advanced sonar technology in hopes of locating the missing aircraft. They've uncovered multiple shipwrecks along the way, but Flight 2501 remains elusive. One of the challenges in finding the plane is the depth and unpredictability of Lake Michigan. Unlike oceanic searches where debris can remain relatively stable, the lake's currents are powerful and unpredictable. If the plane crashed into the water at high speed, the wreckage may have scattered across miles, buried beneath layers of sediment and silt. This makes pinpointing the exact location incredibly difficult. Adding to the mystery is the fact that several sonar anomalies have been detected in areas where the plane is suspected to have crashed. Some objects discovered in the lake resemble aircraft debris, but each time divers investigate, they find nothing conclusive. It's as if the lake itself is guarding its secrets, refusing to give up the answers that so many have searched for. But even if the wreckage were found, would it provide the long-awaited answers? Investigators still wonder what really happened in those final moments. Did the plane break apart mid-air? Did it crash in one piece? Could there have been an explosion? Without physical evidence, the debate continues. Meanwhile, for the families of those aboard Flight 2501, the lack of closure has been heartbreaking. Unlike other crashes where bodies are recovered and memorials can be held, this tragedy left many with nothing. No final goodbyes, no wreckage to lay to rest. Some of the victims' relatives have spent their entire lives searching for answers, only to be met with more silence. Even beyond the families, the aviation community remains intrigued by the case. The disappearance of Flight 2501 serves as a reminder of how, even in modern times, some mysteries simply refuse to be solved. If a plane can disappear in 1950 without a trace, could something like this still happen today? As technology advances, there is still hope that one day, sonar scans or underwater drones will uncover the wreckage of Flight 2501. But until then, the case remains one of aviation's most perplexing and haunting mysteries. Whether hidden by nature, buried in the lake's depths, or lost to something beyond our understanding, the truth about Flight 2501 remains just out of reach. More than 7 decades have passed since Northwest Flight 2501 disappeared into the night, yet the mystery remains as haunting as ever. Despite extensive searches, modern sonar technology, and countless theories, the wreckage has never been found. The lake has refused to give up its secrets, and the final moments of the 58 people on board remain unknown. Was it simply a tragic accident, or did something far stranger happen that night? The official explanation, that the plane was brought down by a violent storm, seems plausible, but it doesn't explain the eerie details. The lack of large debris, the mysterious lights seen in the sky, and the unusual condition of the human remains found all raise unsettling questions. Could there have been a mid-air explosion? Was the aircraft somehow affected by an unknown force? Did Flight 2501 encounter something beyond our understanding? Even as technology has advanced, the answers remain buried beneath the waves. The Michigan Shipwreck Research Association and independent investigators continue to search, but so far the lake has kept the truth hidden. For the families of those who perished, the lack of closure is an open wound that time has not healed. A proper memorial was placed near the crash site, honoring those lost, but their final resting place remains undiscovered. Perhaps one day new technology will finally locate the wreckage. Perhaps an answer will emerge that finally explains what happened to Flight 2501. But until that day, this case stands as a chilling reminder that even in a world of satellites and advanced tracking systems, mysteries can still exist. Planes can still vanish, and some questions may never be answered. But what do you think? Was this simply a tragic accident, or is there something more to the story? Could the Lake Michigan Triangle be hiding secrets we have yet to understand? Or is Flight 2501 just one of many cases where fate intervened in a way we may never comprehend? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and if you found this story as haunting as we did, don't forget to like and share. Maybe, just maybe, the more people who know about this case, the closer we'll get to the truth. After all, some mysteries are only solved when enough people keep searching.